My 13-year-old niece Melissa looked me straight in the eye and told my entire family that I'd sexually assaulted her. The room went dead silent. Then my sister Sarah screamed at me to get away from her daughter and never come back. My own parents, people who'd raised me for 28 years, told me I was no longer welcome in their house. Not one person asked for my side of the story. Not one person said, "Wait, let's think about this." They just believed her instantly and completely because who questions a crying child? Within 24 hours, I lost everything. My job put me on indefinite suspension. My girlfriend Emma sent me a breakup text saying she couldn't be with someone like that. My landlord received anonymous calls demanding my eviction. Neighbors I'd known for years crossed the street to avoid me. But here's what made it even worse. Melissa wasn't crying or traumatized. She was calm, almost satisfied watching my life explode from her accusation. When I tried to tell them I had an alibi, that I was at a work dinner with 15 witnesses 50 miles away that night, she just shrugged and said, "Maybe I got the date wrong." My sister Sarah looked at me with pure hatred and said, "Even if you have an alibi, something happened. Kids don't just make this stuff up." 3 years later, Melissa confessed she'd lied about everything. She wrote a detailed letter explaining how she'd made up the story because she was angry I wouldn't let her use my car. The police investigation had already cleared me with the most solid alibi they'd ever seen, but my family had refused to believe it. Now they want me back. They expect forgiveness. They think saying sorry fixes 3 years of hell. I had 15 witnesses, but nobody wanted to hear it. And now that the truth is out, they're about to learn what happens when you destroy an innocent man's life. Let me take you back to when things were normal before my 13-year-old niece destroyed my life with a single lie. Melissa had been like a daughter to me for 5 years. I was the uncle who helped with math homework, drove her to soccer practice when Sarah was busy, and never missed a school play or birthday party. I genuinely loved that kid. When she struggled with algebra, I'd spend entire Saturday afternoons teaching her step by step until it clicked. When she wanted to learn guitar, I bought her lessons and drove her there myself. Sarah used to joke that Melissa loved me more than her own dad, her ex-husband who'd moved across the country and barely called. Every family gathering, Melissa would sit next to me during dinner asking about my job in IT consulting, showing me her latest drawings, telling me about drama with her friends. She trusted me completely, and I thought that trust was mutual. I thought I was building the kind of relationship that would last her whole life. My relationship with Sarah was solid too, or so I believed. We'd grown up close despite the 4-year age gap, and when she became a single mom, I stepped up without being asked. Emergency babysitting, helping with Melissa's school expenses, being the male role model that kid needed. I did it all gladly. Sarah used to say I was the best brother anyone could ask for. "Melissa's so lucky to have you," she'd tell me at every family dinner. Our parents constantly praised how our family took care of each other, how we'd always be there for one another no matter what. Outside of family, my life was finally stable in ways I'd worked hard to achieve. My IT consulting business was growing steadily. I had regular corporate clients and a solid reputation for solving complex network problems. My girlfriend Emma and I had been together for 2 years, talking seriously about moving in together and maybe getting married. I had my own apartment, a reliable car, good health insurance, and a growing savings account. For the first time in my adult life, everything felt secure. I was 31 years old and finally hitting my stride professionally and personally. I thought my life was finally on track, built on relationships I could count on and work I was proud of. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to think that family loyalty was unconditional or that being innocent would be enough to protect me when someone decided to destroy everything I'd built. March 15th, 2019. I'll never forget that date. It was a Friday evening and the whole family had gathered at my parents' house for dinner. Normal family night. Mom had made her famous lasagna, Dad was complaining about his back, and Melissa was showing everyone her latest school project. Everything seemed perfectly normal until dessert was served. That's when Melissa suddenly went quiet, staring down at her plate. Sarah asked what was wrong, and that's when my 13-year-old niece looked up with tears in her eyes and said the words that would destroy my life. "Uncle David touched me inappropriately last Saturday night when he was babysitting me." The silence that followed felt like the world had stopped spinning. Then Sarah exploded. "What did you just say?" she screamed, jumping up from her chair. "What exactly did he do to you?" I sat there in complete shock, my brain struggling to process what I'd just heard. Last Saturday night, I wasn't even babysitting Melissa last Saturday. I was 50 miles away at a company dinner with my entire team. But before I could get a word out, my father stood up and pointed toward the door. "Get out of my house," he said, his voice cold as ice. "Get out, right now." "Dad, wait." I started, but he cut me off. I said, "Get out. We'll deal with this through proper channels." My mother was crying, holding Melissa, while Sarah continued screaming at me to stay away from her daughter. The whole room erupted in chaos while I sat there trying to understand how my life had just imploded over something that never happened. Nobody asked for my side of the story. Nobody said, "Let's talk about this calmly." I tried to tell them I had an alibi, that I was at a work dinner with 15 people last Saturday night, that I had receipts and witnesses and security footage proving I was nowhere near Melissa. But Sarah just screamed louder, "I don't want to hear your lies." By Monday morning, my life was already unraveling. Sarah had called my boss over the weekend. Didn't matter that it was my personal business, didn't matter that I hadn't been charged with anything. HR called me into a meeting before I even reached my desk. "We're placing you on administrative leave pending investigation," my manager said, barely making eye contact. "Company policy for these situations." 15 years of building my reputation gone overnight. My clients started getting reassigned to other consultants. Projects I'd been leading for months were suddenly handed off to colleagues who wouldn't look me in the eye. The whispers in the office were deafening. Everyone knew why I wasn't there, and everyone had already made up their minds. I was guilty until proven innocent, and maybe not even then. Emma's breakup text arrived that same evening. "I can't be with someone like that. Don't contact me again." 2 years together, and she couldn't even have the conversation in person. No questions asked, no benefit of the doubt given. Just a text message ending everything we'd built together. I called her anyway, desperate to explain about the alibi, about the company dinner, about the 15 witnesses who could prove I was nowhere near Melissa that night. The call went straight to voicemail. She'd already blocked me. Within 48 hours, the story had spread through our entire community like wildfire. Neighbors who'd waved at me for years suddenly found reasons to be inside when I walked to my car. Mrs. Peterson from next door pulled her kids indoors when she saw me coming. The grocery store cashier who used to chat about the weather could barely look at me. My landlord got anonymous calls demanding my eviction. Someone spray-painted "Predator" on my car. I had to park 3 blocks away just to avoid the stares and whispers. But the worst part was my family's continued rejection of the evidence I tried to present. I'd gathered everything from that Saturday night: restaurant receipts showing I'd eaten dinner 50 miles away, credit card records proving the timeline contact information for every coworker who'd been at that company dinner. I called Sarah, tried to email the documentation to my parents, even drove to their house to hand-deliver the proof. They wouldn't look at any of it. "Receipts can be faked," Sarah said when I showed her the restaurant bill, time-stamped at 8:47 p.m. "Your coworkers could be lying to protect you," Dad said when I gave him their contact information. "Where there's smoke, there's fire," Mom added, refusing to even touch the envelope of evidence I'd brought. They'd already made up their minds, and no amount of proof was going to change them. The people who'd raised me, who'd known me for 31 years, who'd seen my character firsthand, they chose to believe I was capable of something monstrous rather than consider that Melissa might be lying. Sarah said receipts could be faked, and I realized my own family would rather believe I was a predator than admit they'd made a mistake. 2 weeks after the accusation, Detective Martinez called to schedule an interview. Unlike my family, the police actually wanted to hear my side of the story. I walked into that interview room with a folder full of evidence ready to clear my name through proper channels. "Tell me about March 9th, Detective Martinez said, pulling out a notepad. "March 9th, the Saturday. Melissa claimed it happened. I walked him through my entire day work until 4 p.m., drove directly to Romano's restaurant for the annual company dinner, stayed until closing time at 11 p.m., then went straight home, 50 miles away from Melissa the entire evening. "Do you have documentation of this timeline?" he asked. Did I ever? Credit card receipts showing the drive to Romano's. Restaurant bill time-stamped at 6:15 p.m. for our table reservation. Security footage from the restaurant's parking lot. Uber receipt from when I rode home with my coworker Jake because I'd had a few drinks. At least the police wanted to hear my side of the story. Detective Martinez spent the next week verifying everything. He interviewed all 15 of my coworkers who'd been at that dinner. He pulled the restaurant's security footage and confirmed I was there from 6 p.m. until they kicked us out at closing. He verified my credit card timeline, my Uber ride, everything. "This is one of the most solid alibis I've ever seen," he told me during our second meeting. "You have 15 independent witnesses, video evidence, and a paper trail that accounts for every hour of that evening." My coworkers didn't hesitate to confirm my whereabouts. Jake remembered our conversation about his divorce. Maria recalled how I'd helped her fix her laptop at the dinner table. Tom confirmed I'd driven him home because his car was in the shop. 15 people confirmed I was there all night exactly where I said I was during the time Melissa claimed I was assaulting her. But when I tried to share this vindication with my family, they doubled down on their accusations instead of admitting they'd been wrong. 15 people can't all be lying, I told Sarah over the phone, reading from the police report. "They're your coworkers," she said dismissively. "Of course they'd cover for you." "The security footage shows me at the restaurant," I said. "Videos can be doctored," Dad interjected. He was on speakerphone backing up Sarah as usual. "The police detective said it's the clearest alibi he's ever seen." "Maybe you hired someone to assault her while you were at dinner," Sarah suggested, grasping at straws to avoid admitting Melissa had lied. That's when I realized they would never believe me no matter how much evidence I presented. They'd rather create elaborate conspiracy theories than accept the simple truth that their precious Melissa had made the whole thing up. I had to start over completely. New apartment in a different part of town, new phone number, new job search in a different field. I couldn't work in IT anymore. The professional community was too small and the rumors had spread too far. I had to rebuild everything from scratch because my own family chose to believe a lie rather than face the truth. Let me walk you through exactly how bulletproof my alibi was, because the details matter when your entire life depends on proving your innocence. March 9th, 2019. I clocked out of work at exactly 4:03 p.m. The building's keycard system logged me leaving. I drove straight to Romano's restaurant on 5th Avenue, arriving at 5:47 p.m. according to my credit card timestamp at the parking garage. Our company had reserved the private dining room for our annual team dinner, 15 people total. I sat between Jake Morrison and Maria Santos from accounting. We ordered appetizers at 6:15 p.m. I have the itemized receipt showing my signature on the credit card slip. The restaurant's security cameras captured me walking through the front entrance at 5:52 p.m. and showed me at our table until we were asked to leave at closing time. Every minute of that evening was documented somewhere. Credit card transactions, security footage, witness testimony, digital records that couldn't be faked or manipulated. The witness statements were unanimous and detailed. Jake remembered our entire conversation about his messy divorce, how his ex-wife was demanding half his retirement fund. Maria recalled how I'd helped her troubleshoot her laptop when it froze during dessert, walking her through a system restart right there at the table. Tom Bradley confirmed I'd given him a ride home because his car was in the shop. He remembered we'd stopped at a gas station on the way back. Another security camera, another timestamp, another piece of evidence that I was exactly where I said I was. Sarah from HR described how I'd volunteered to drive 3 coworkers home that night because they'd been drinking. Lisa from marketing remembered how I'd paid for everyone's dessert when the company card got declined. These weren't just professional colleagues covering for me. These were people who had absolutely no reason to lie. My coworkers knew exactly what kind of person I was, and they didn't hesitate to tell the police the truth. The physical evidence painted a crystal clear picture. Restaurant security footage showed me arriving at 5:52 p.m., sitting at table 12 for the entire evening, and leaving when the restaurant closed at 11:23 p.m. The parking garage cameras captured my car entering at 5:45 p.m. and leaving at 11:30. My credit card showed transactions at 6:15 p.m. for our group appetizers, 8:30 p.m. for my individual meal, and 10:45 p.m. when I bought the final round of desserts for the table. My phone's GPS data confirmed I'd driven directly from work to the restaurant and then straight home afterward. The gas station receipt from our stop on the way home was timestamped at 11:47 p.m., 37 miles away from where Melissa claimed I was assaulting her. The cameras showed me there until closing time, and there was no possible way I could have been in 2 places at once. When Detective Martinez closed the case, he made it official. Based on the comprehensive evidence provided, including multiple witness statements, security footage, and documented timeline, the accused has a conclusive alibi for the entire evening in question. No charges will be filed. The detective said it was the clearest alibi he'd ever seen in 20 years of police work. 15 witnesses, 6 hours of security footage, and a paper trail that accounted for every minute of that Saturday night. I was officially cleared of all accusations. The case was closed due to lack of evidence and the defendant's proven alibi. It should have been over. But when I called my family to share the news of my vindication, their response revealed everything I needed to know about who they really were. "The police are probably covering for you," Sarah said when I told her the case had been closed. "Cops stick together with other men." Mom added, refusing to accept that the investigation had cleared me completely. Dad's response was the most telling. "Just because you weren't charged doesn't mean you're innocent. Sometimes the system fails." They'd rather believe in a massive conspiracy involving 15 co-workers, restaurant security cameras, credit card companies, and the police department than admit that Melissa had lied to them. Even the police clearing me wasn't enough for them. They'd already decided I was guilty, and no amount of evidence would change their minds. After my family's response to the police clearing me, I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. I chose self-preservation over their approval. I changed my phone number, moved to a different city 3 hours away, and cut off all contact with every member of my family. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. 3 years of being treated like a predator by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had nearly destroyed my mental health. I couldn't keep subjecting myself to their toxic refusal to accept reality. I decided my mental health was worth more than their approval, and I stopped caring what any of them thought. Building a new support system from scratch taught me the difference between real relationships and the fake loyalty I'd grown up believing was normal. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma from false accusations. I joined a hiking group where people knew me as David the IT consultant, not David the falsely accused. My new coworkers at the software company didn't know about my past, and I was determined to keep it that way. These relationships were built on who I actually was, not on family obligations or shared history. When someone earned my trust, it meant something. When someone showed loyalty, it was genuine. I learned the difference between family and people who actually act like family, and the difference was everything. My professional rehabilitation was slower but steady. The background check for my new job came back completely clean. No charges, no convictions, just a police report that cleared me of all accusations. My new boss said my record was cleaner than most people they hired. I threw myself into work, becoming the go-to person for complex system integrations. I earned respect through competence, not through shared genetics. My reputation was something I built myself brick by brick based on actual merit rather than family connections. My new boss said my background check was cleaner than most, and I realized professional vindication felt better than family approval ever had. The hardest part was learning emotional detachment from people I'd loved my entire life. Therapy helped me understand that cutting toxic people out isn't cruelty, it's necessary self-care. I practiced not checking their social media, not wondering what they were doing, not caring about their opinions. I meditated daily, exercising the mental muscle of indifference. When thoughts of Sarah or my parents crept in, I'd redirect my energy toward people who'd actually earned a place in my life. I worked deliberately to stop caring what they thought because caring had nearly killed me. The breakthrough came when I realized I could think about them without feeling anything. No anger, no sadness, no longing, just nothing. They'd become strangers to me, people from my past who no longer had any power over my present. I worked hard to stop caring what they thought, and eventually I succeeded completely. 3 years of rebuilding had given me something I'd never had with my family: peace. Real peace based on genuine relationships and earned respect rather than obligation and guilt. 3 years after my life was destroyed, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "David, it's Mom." Her voice was shaky, uncertain. "We need to talk. Something's happened with Melissa." The something was a complete confession. Melissa, now 16 and in therapy for depression, had finally told the truth. She'd made up the entire accusation because she was angry that I wouldn't let her borrow my car that weekend. 3 years of therapy had broken down her guilt until she couldn't live with the lie anymore. 3 years later, Melissa finally broke under the weight of her own lie. 2 weeks later, I received an invitation that made my blood pressure spike: a family barbecue at my parents' house. "We want to make things right," the text said. "Please come, we miss you." I almost deleted it immediately, but something made me curious about what they thought making things right actually looked like after 3 years of destroying an innocent man's reputation. I showed up to find the entire extended family gathered in my parents' backyard. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen since the accusation, everyone looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact. My parents had clearly orchestrated this as some kind of intervention. They invited me to a barbecue like nothing had happened, like 3 years of hell could be fixed with potato salad and small talk. Sarah approached me first, holding an envelope with shaking hands. "Melissa wrote you a letter," she said quietly. "She wanted you to read it in front of everyone." The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten in Melissa's careful teenage script. She detailed everything: how she'd made up the story in a moment of anger, how she'd been too scared to take it back when she saw how seriously everyone believed her, how the guilt had eaten at her for years. "I destroyed Uncle David's life because I was mad about a stupid car," she wrote. "I watched everyone turn against him and I didn't stop it. I'm sorry doesn't fix what I did, but it's all I have. He never touched me. I made it all up." The letter confirmed what I'd known all along, but hearing it read aloud felt surreal. My Uncle Frank was the first to speak after the letter was read. "Jesus Christ, David, we're so sorry. I can't believe we put you through this." But my parents and Sarah had a different reaction entirely. Instead of shame or genuine remorse, they seemed to expect immediate forgiveness and reconciliation. "We know you're hurt," Mom said, "but your family. Melissa was just a child when this happened. We all made mistakes, but now we can move forward together." Sarah nodded eagerly. "We want you back in our lives. We want to be a family again." They were talking like I should just come back, like their destroying my life was a minor family disagreement that could be solved with an apology and a group hug. Sarah expected me to just come back like nothing happened, like 3 years of being treated as a predator was just water under the bridge. The extended family's reaction was completely different. My cousin Amy looked horrified. "You mean he was telling the truth the whole time about the work dinner?" "He had 15 witnesses," Uncle Frank said, his voice getting angrier. 15 people and security footage, and you still didn't believe him." Aunt Carol shook her head in disgust. "I can't believe how you treated him. The poor man was completely innocent." My uncle said he couldn't believe how they treated me, and I realized even my extended family understood how wrong this had been. The validation from people who'd watched from the sidelines was nice, but it didn't change my decision. I'd had 3 years to process what my immediate family was capable of, and I wasn't interested in giving them another chance to destroy me. When the extended family finished expressing their shock and apologies, everyone turned to me expectantly. They were waiting for the heartwarming reconciliation, the family reunion where love conquers all. Instead, I stood up and looked directly at my parents and Sarah. "I appreciate Melissa's honesty, but this doesn't change anything between us," I said calmly. "You had a choice 3 years ago to give me the benefit of the doubt, to listen to my alibi, to trust the person you'd known your entire life. You chose to believe I was a monster instead." The silence in the backyard was deafening. "Some things can't be fixed, even with the truth. I've built a new life without you, and I'm keeping it that way." I told them some things can't be fixed, even with the truth, and walked away from them for the last time. The silence in that backyard after my rejection was complete. My parents sat there in stunned disbelief, unable to process that their apology hadn't magically fixed 3 years of damage. Sarah kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish, clearly expecting me to change my mind and agree to some tearful reunion. "But we're family," Mom finally whispered, as if blood relation trumped everything they'd put me through. "You're apologizing," Dad added desperately. "What more do you want?" They couldn't believe I wouldn't just forgive and forget, that saying sorry wasn't enough to undo 3 years of treating me like a predator. I walked to my car while they sat there processing the fact that actions have permanent consequences even within families. The extended family members who'd witnessed everything didn't try to stop me. They understood exactly why I was leaving and why I wouldn't be back. 2 years have passed since that barbecue, and I haven't heard from my immediate family since. No birthday calls, no holiday texts, no attempts to guilt me back into their lives. They finally got the message that I meant what I said. My new life is built on trust that's been earned, not assumed. I'm in a relationship with someone who knew about my past from the beginning and chose to believe me based on evidence rather than emotion. I have friends who've proven their loyalty through actions, not just words. My new life was built on trust, not assumptions, and the difference has been everything. Being falsely accused taught me the most valuable lesson of my life: when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. My family showed me they were willing to destroy an innocent man rather than question a 13-year-old's lie. I believed them and I acted accordingly. Some bridges can't be rebuilt even when you have all the proof in the world, and sometimes that's exactly how it should be.